Hello, YouTube. So today we're going to be going over my build I did for in-game Rush called Blinded Me with Sirens. This is a Ties That Binds build that does take advantage of Slam and Phase Cast for bossing. Before we start, I do want to point out that as I was practicing and getting ready for in-game Rush, I did take some pointers from LazyData, and as such, I do have to give some credit to this build from Lazy. So I will have his information down in the description box down below. Really appreciate it if you'd go and check him out if you haven't already seen his stuff. He is one of the top ranking individuals when it comes to the different competitions in Borderlands, and an all-around just really great guy. With that, let's go ahead and go over the build. So one of the biggest things that we're going to be using in this build is the free radical with the kill stack anoint, or killing an enemy grants 13% weapon damage, extra reload speed, and it does stack. So that's going to be the biggest thing that we're using. For bossing, like I said, we're going to be using Slam and Phase Cast. So we're going to make sure that we have the Slam and Phase Cast anoints on our free radicals. But overall, if you're not specifically doing this for a speed run, this build is really just set up as a really good gun Amara build. So you can pretty much just use whatever weapon you really want. If you want to have fun with the no pew pew, you want to go old school and do some plasma coil, anything in this, any gun in this is going to be great. The face puncher will do a little less because it is melee instead of gun damage. So whatever guns you like using, just throw it on there. It'll do amazing in this build setup. The Revolter is going to be the top pick just because it gives you that extra shock damage on top of all of the damage that Amara already does. So just giving you a little bit extra damage to compensate for the fact that Amara doesn't have the best gun damage out of all of the characters. Grenade-wise, I kind of switch it out depending on what I'm doing. I really like to run its piss grenades for that debuff. However, if I'm doing something with a little bit more health, like one of the takedowns or hemo, I do like to run the fish slap just because it gives out that extra damage. I switch in between a lot on what relics I'm using. I do like to run the Malawan Company, kind of like the fish slap. I like to use it for the higher health things, just because it gives you a lot more damage, a lot more magazine size, just a lot more reliable. That being said, I am a huge fan of the Snowdrift, just because of the speed element to it. So running a Snowdrift on there is going to be good. Victory Rush preferred, but really any Company Man and any Victory Rush is going to be great on this build, with just a little bit more damage taken from those. The preferred setup for this is going to be Phazerker, because it gives you extra cooldown rate and extra weapon damage, which are going to be the two big things that this build is all about, is spamming our cooldown and spamming our weapon damages. With that, let's go ahead and get into the skills. So we are going Capstone so that we can have Avatar. We do have 5 out of 5 in Do Harm, so we can stack our rush stacks and get extra skill damage. That's going to be kind of helpful for like when Wotan does his split. You can use Phase Cast to hit him in the split and do extra damage to that, kill him a little bit faster. 3 out of 3 in fast hands for that reload speed. One of the things that's going to help us being stayed up is making sure that we constantly have our weapon reloaded. You're most likely to go down with this build when you're reloading, so we want to make sure we get as fast of reload speed as we can get. 1 out of 5 in Violet Tempestry, and that's 1 to get down the tree, and 2 because it's nice to have just a little bit extra effect chance when you have more rush stacks. 5 out of 5 in Electricity, which is going to give us that increased reload speed like we were talking about. 3 out of 3 in Transcend for some extra critical hit damage and accuracy. The big thing there is the critical hit damage. Amara has really good crit damage, and that's kind of why she can struggle a little bit on Hemo, is because Hemo doesn't have a super available crit spot to hit. 5 out of 5 in Restless for increased cooldown speed. 1 in Ascendant to get just a little bit more out of our Soul Sap. 3 out of 3 in From Rest for the fire rate and charge speed on our Free Radical. 3 out of 3 in Laid Bare, just to increase our damage a little bit. 3 out of 3 in Wrath, so that we can get more gun damage. 1 in Remnant. It's always great to just have 1 in Remnant because it does such incredible damage even just with 1 skill, or 1 point investment. 1 out of 1 in Avatar, and that's so we can use our action skill more than once. We did go ahead and take Capstone in Red as well. We do skip Anima, and the big reason you skip Anima is because Anima damages yourself as well. So if you have a status effect on yourself, even with 1 point of Anima, you are just going down constantly. So we just skip Anima. We went 3 out of 3 in Steady Hands, so we have some better weapon handling and better accuracy. 5 out of 5 in Infusion, and this is because we get that extra damage from our action skill element. So we're using the Free Radical, that's going to be Shock, but most of the time you're running Fire, Corrosive, something else on your action skill. So you've got that 40% from what the Free Radical is doing with those extra gun damage bonuses added to it, and doing that 40% extra in the element that you're actually using. 5 out of 5 in Tempest, that's just to increase our elemental damage and further increase the Radical's damage since it's Shock. 1 in Illuminated Fist, this is mainly just to get down the tree, but it is kind of nice to have just a little bit extra melee damage for when you are using that fish, or you need to melee an enemy because you ran out of bullets just as it had a little bit of health left, so you can pretty much guarantee a melee kill there. 1 in Wildfire, and that is to get down the tree, but having the extra status effect chance for it to spread is pretty nice. We've got 1 in Dread, which is just for the gun damage, and we are mainly using Ties That Bind here, so a lot of the times you'll have that extra gun damage. We take in Discriminate because it's one of Amara's best skills. You're constantly doing extra damage. You add Ties That Bind into that to do even more damage to everybody. It just gets insane. We go ahead and pick up Deep Well, so we have that increased magazine size, which does help kind of with, like I was saying, the biggest thing you're going to go down for is reloading. So the less often we have to reload, the better. We take 4 out of 5 in Conflux, and we have 5 on our class mod, and that's mainly just because we don't want to pick up Anima on the class mod so that we don't have that status effect affecting us. And this is just basically to get an extra chance to have that corrosive going on there, have the fire going on there if you're using fire. We take 1 in Sustainment, which is going to give us lifesteal, and even just 1 in Sustainment does amazing on Amara. She does so much damage that having just 4% lifesteal just keeps her up constantly. You just see that health bar fill so quickly. And of course we pick up Forceful Expression, so we can get that bonus elemental damage. Oh, sorry. We take 3 out of 3 in Personal Space, so that we can have a little bit extra damage if we're closer to our targets. And we take 2 out of 5 in Clarity to give us a little bit of health regeneration. Now the biggest reason we pick up those 2 skills isn't so much because the skills themselves are the best, it's so that we can get down to Blight Tiger and use our corrosive elemental damage for our action skill. And our last 5 points are going to go into Heavy Rain, which is going to help with projectile speed if we're using something that is more projectile based, and with our splash damage, which helps out a lot since this was mainly around a Free Radical build, and that does have splash damage on the rockets. Now, as always, like I like to point out in my builds, I do have all of the skills in the Guardian rank unlocked. So that is going to make a difference if you don't have them all unlocked. The biggest ones there are going to be Hollow Point and Groundbreaker, which when those proc can just completely demolish an enemy. So you'll see a lot of difference in damage if you don't have. So that's the build, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this video. Leave a comment and a like down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know which builds you want to see next. I think I am going to go ahead and cover my endgame rush builds. So if you want to see Moe's next, let me know. If you want to see Flak next, let me know. And that's been it for me, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I've been your local sassy SwinLaw. Stay classy, Pandora.